align it. Okay, so get it? So sometimes when you are making lady shoes or high heels, the curve here is bigger. Okay, so sometimes you need to cut, to keep some cut here. Okay, to smoothen it down. Okay, this is fine. This is men's shoes. But for lady shoes, you need to cut some of the area. Try to pull it like we are lasting the shoes. Okay. Okay. The back one. Also center. Okay. Pull it. Try to really pull it and make them nicely stick on top. Yeah. We don't want to see too much of the Alright, so after this one, we stick from the back to almost the tip here. So it's like a diagonal. Okay. So try to pull it, press it down. Alright. Yeah? Okay, from this part to this part, press it down, pull it down. Okay, then now you go horizontal. Normally I do it when I'm watching like TV or listening to radio, where I don't really, when the time I don't really used to use my brain. It's quite meditative. Yeah. So this one is horizontal. Okay. After the diagonal one, go the horizontal. Horizontal to the ground. So let's say this is the ground. So we keep this horizontal to the ground. Okay. And we start from the center here to the front here. Okay? Then we go all the way down. Yeah, it takes a while. So if your shoes is, if your design is different from the outside and the inside is different, then you have to do the whole shoes. But if your shoe design is pretty much similar, it's pretty much balanced, then you can just do it on one side and mirror it. Yeah, you can mirror the paper pattern. Okay. So this part, if you sit down and do it, it's easier. You have to introduce this position called shoemaker's position. Do you know what shoemaker position? Let me try it. So there's a chair. Okay. So when you make shoes or design, I don't know, design shoes, maybe you design it on a table. So when you make shoes, you use your leg a lot. Okay, as a table. And then when you cut things, when you lasting, you really have to use this as a table. You don't really use the table. The table you put tools, but when you really making a pair of shoes, you use a lot of that. Okay, so it's easy. You will see why I say it's easy. Because everything I can just be in control. Okay, when you do the overlapping, you don't do like overlap half to one third to half. Okay, 三分一到一半。And then we pull it. Easier than standing up, right? Okay, let's say you have half of them. If your design got another half, you just do this half as well. But normally you can mirror this. Okay, you can mirror this. And now you finish it with adding one more. So I basically shortcut it because time is short. Normally, if you want to have more, how to say, if you want this canvas to be more durable, okay, now it's already just one layer. But if you want this canvas to be more durable, when you take out the paper pattern is stronger. We normally have to stick another layer, which is perpendicular, like this. Okay, we just add another layer of perpendicular masking tape on it. For now, I guess you know what I'm saying, right? So we just stick with this, and by closing the whole masking tape process with the center line again. Okay? And then you will have the canvas. Yeah? So half, if you have to do the whole shoes, do the same thing on the inside. Okay? If you want it stronger, add another layer which is perpendicular. Okay? But now this is a single layer masking tape here. Okay? Because of the time. And now you can make some points, which is very important as well. Can I borrow your pencil? Some point, reference point is there's a few reference point to tell for the designing process, basically. Okay. So the first thing you need to do is the center line. Okay. So the center line is, you just look at the highest point here. Here. Look at the highest point here. And look at the highest point here. Okay. And then you can use the tape measure. You can use this, but the simplest way is to look at it. Okay. Use your eyes. Okay. Look at the 2 point. Look at the 2 point, and then just mark a few points in between. Yeah. And then join them together. and this is your center line. So you need a center line anyway. When you want to do something, or when you want to take this out and mirror the paper pattern, then you need a center line. The back is the same. Okay, look at the highest point. Mark the highest point, and then join the two. All right. So now, a few points you have to know. Is the first point is the VAM. We call it the VAM point. The VAM point is a lot of way to calculate it, but that is the simplest way to do it is to look at this curve here. Look at this curve here. To look at this curve here, and to find the lowest point of this curve. Okay, and find the curve where the curve starts changing. So for me, visually, it's here. So this is the VAM point. So when you're doing design, try to avoid to make this area too busy. Okay, because this is where the point when you walk, you start bending your toes. Okay, so you have to try, this part, don't put like a big design on it. I saw earlier it's a lady's shoes with a big brooch on it from Bell, and the designers told me they got a lot of complaints because when they walk, the customers just cut their feet because it's busy, and we're aware they put a big brooch on it, so which is not good. So the second point is we call it the instep point. The instep point. The instep point is half of the shoes. Half of the shoes, which is visually, half of the shoes will be here. Okay, and then I point it up, and then this is the instep point. Okay, so this is the highest point, this is the instep point, and from the instep point to the VAM point, you take the midpoint. Okay, this is quite important. This point, I don't know, I forgot the name. Okay, I just make it up. It's called opening point. Opening point. So this point is important because it cannot, for shoes, we cannot go, for example, when I have to put shoelaces or when I have to consider the opening of the shoes, like for example this one, this opening point cannot be too high, otherwise you cannot put your feet into the shoes. Okay, so this opening point cannot be higher. It's because when it gets higher, you just have difficulty to put your feet into the shoes. So this is important. Okay, this is important. And where the top bit here, you can sometimes you go higher, sometimes you go lower. It's fine. That's where the tongue is. The tongue. Okay. So these 2 points, bear in mind. Don't make it too busy. Okay, because when you walk, this is going to bend. This point cannot go higher because when it gets higher, and then you have difficulty to put your feet inside. Okay, so this is the two very important reference points. So another one. If you mark it down, I hope you all can remember. Yeah. So, yeah. Any questions? Huh? It's okay, right? So, VAM point, opening point, and instep point. Okay? So, back height for example, like dress shoes, how to set this back height. There's a calculation to it. It's 1/5 of the shoe last normally. 1/5. Okay, let's say this is 26. Then 1/5 is how much? 26嘅5分一係幾多 ？5.2, right? So 5.2 over here. So this is the back height point. 1/5 of the shoe last, you get the back height. Okay? So, of course, boot is higher. But if you can go higher, but don't go awkwardly higher, because like if you go like 1 inch higher or 2 centimeters higher, it will just cut this part. Okay? So for boot, it's 3 inch and above, we call boots. 3 inch and above, we call boots. So anything in between 2.5 to 3 inches is no good. You either go higher than 3 inch. Okay? But don't go lower than this back height point. If you go lower than this back height point, your shoe will be not gripping. Okay? You need this part to grip the back. I mean, sometimes when you walk on the shoes, when this part is too low, you're just feeling the shoes is like, how to say, it's just coming off. Yeah, so you need this part. Yeah, you need this part to do the job. Okay, so, and now, important again. So from the van point, try to get the 90 degrees here. Okay? Try to get the 90 degrees. Some of the tricks actually is the old shoemakers tell me. I mean, because when you look at the book, sometimes can be quite complicated. Okay? It will give you like a lot of formulas to do it. But there's like few reference points you just have to remember, and then you will be safe with your shoes. So, fan point 90 degree, draw a line here. Okay. Fan point 90 degree, draw a line here. Okay. So, and then find out the midpoint of this line. So this from van to, we call it feather edge. From the van to the feather edge is 7 centimeters, so which is 3.5 as a midpoint. Yeah? So let's say we call it the midpoint. So you draw a line from the midpoint to the back. Draw a straight line from the midpoint to the back. So this is a bit like a lady's shoes, right? Huh? This is the structure of the lady's shoes. You can call it a court shoe. Sometimes the ladies with something like this, and you even go lower. And you can go lower. Some of the ladies' shoes, I mean nowadays they really want to see the toes a little bit. It makes it more sexy. Okay? So sometimes you do that. But if you go higher, it looks very old-fashioned. Yeah? So you can play around with this point here. You go lower. And sometimes this point, you can go lower, okay? You go upper, but this is the reference point you can work with. Okay, the design is up to you. So this is where you can work with. And what else? What else you want to know?
how to transfer that pattern into the paper.
Okay.
Because I think that's the most difficult, the problem, the most difficult part that the previous student encountered.
Yeah?
So
Okay.
just basic, like a pump shoes and just draw a line how to place on the paper.
Alright. It's not that difficult, actually. Yeah. Can I have a piece of paper? Okay, I'll just cut it out first. So when this is ready, let's say this is your design, very simple. Okay, then you have to think of where I'm going to put the stitch and how the stitch will be. Am I going to put this stitch onto here, or I will use this method, the overlapping. So this is just the design. If you're making the shoe in different way, the paper pattern will come in different form. Okay. So let's say the simplest way. So if I want to make this design with this stitching, then I don't have to create any allowance at all. Okay. But let me cut this out first. So when you cut this out, of course you clean this first. You clean the feather edge. So using the side of the pencil. Using the side of the pencil. Okay. And then sit down to it. Cut. So when you're doing this, try to be slow, and don't put your fingers too close, okay? Because I'm cutting the feather edge, the angle here, the corner here. So it's not as easy as I'm doing now when you're doing it. Okay, so cut this. Cut this. Okay, so now you can take this out. Or you can take, okay, let me do this one. Cut the whole things out first. it's good to give another layer because now it's like single layer. Sometimes they just, when you take this out, it's just more difficult. Do it slowly. Okay. Can I have a piece of paper? Draw a straight line. Or fold it. Okay, for this bit, slightly. So you can see this bit here, right? Yeah, it's fine. You just align the top bit. This part, they will just last to the bottom, so it's okay. And this one. So just take it out slowly. So for the back part here, so keep this straight. Remember, this is the opening. Okay? This is where connected to here. Okay? Connected to the midpoint here. Okay, this is the midpoint, which is connected to here. This will go to the bottom. Okay? But sometimes you will see it, okay, I just have difficulty to light it flat. So what should I do? Okay? So we do this. So it's like a 2C shape here. It's a quite a funny, quite a magical cut, because when you cut this, they will have room to flatten it down. Yeah? Okay, so can I have another piece of paper? Yeah, so it's very simple. So try to not distort this. So push this to the direction where you're going to last. So this is the direction we're going to last, right? This is the opening. So push it outward. So now you have this part, and the front part. Okay? This one is just by mirroring. Okay? So we have introduced like this method, which is you don't really see much allowance on it. They just hand stitched side by side. So if I'm using this method to make this shoes, where I should put my allowance? Where should I put my allowance?
The
Huh?
place where you last.
Okay, only the base will last, right? Yeah? Is it correct? Or the what? Okay. So for this one, I just have to give 1 inch allowance here. So 1 inch. So you use this one. Or you use by eyes as well. You can. So one inch is about this much. Okay. So this is your allowance. The rest you can just leave it, because this method you don't need allowance. But how about the back part here? Which is the back part here? If I want to create something like this, do I need allowance? Yes, right? So this will change the design. Okay, so you either this one, you don't need allowance. But this one, you need allowance. About like, let's say 5 millimeter. And then you cut it and send it off. Okay? So it depends on the detailing you want it to be. Okay? So, but for the bottom, for the lasting allowance, you can write it down. Normally we give 1 inch. So this is the lasting allowance. Okay? So also here. Lasting. Okay, so besides lasting allowance, if we want to do the overlapping, where's the overlapping sample? Anyone see the overlapping sample? Overlapping stitch, yeah. Okay, for this one, how much do we need? How much do we need for the back? It depends, right? It depends on how far you want the stitch to go. Okay, let's say if you want to stitch 3 millimeters away, then at least you need 4 millimeters for the allowance. No, sorry. If you want to stitch 3 millimeters away, you need 6 millimeters allowance. Okay? If you want to stitch 2 millimeters, you at least need 4 to 5 millimeters allowance. Okay? You cannot, you have to like double it. Okay? sometimes when you want to do something like this, we call brooks, then we need to calculate what is the width of the brooks, so that I can stitch brooks and stitch. This is about 10 to 12 millimeters, this one, because I have to allow the overlapping of the detail, right? Alright, so this is the overlapping, and then we have folding allowance. Folding allowance, when you sometimes work with the thinner material, which is like this, for example, thinner material, you see they have a folding edge here, right? So it's not raw edge. This is called raw edge. We call raw edge for this one, but we call this is a folding edge. So they skive it and fold it, and this skive and fold allowance is about 5 millimeters as well. Okay, in case you work with thinner material, then it's good to know. Let me see if they have a, you can see, yeah, see it. Yeah. So they fold and stitch. Yeah, fold and stitched. So fold and stitched inside, and this lining is another layer. Okay, so overlapping allowance, folding allowance, lasting allowance, or no allowance. Depends on what material, what method, what is the way how you do the closing. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much about it. So sticking the masking tape, get your design, do the mirroring, flatten it, and work with the allowance, and then you will basically have your paper pattern to work on the real material with your design. Yeah, any big questions? I know, I mean, it's a lot, but you really have to work on it. So you just get a big towel. If you have one, there's a whole one at home. Nail is important. So imagine you already put your paperboard on the sole. Okay, now you are doing the lasting. So let's say normally you will see your lasting allowance and everything. Okay, so this is the lasting allowance. Yeah. So I'll just do a quick demonstration of how to do this. So when you nail this, you just put it in an angle normally. It's not like going straight in, but it's not like this, but in an angle. Okay. So this can make everything easy. And then this one. So you can either use this part or this part, but you don't really use the hammer. Just put 3 keep the position. So when you do lasting, you don't put the nail all the way in. You just leave it like this. Okay, now you can do some. Imagine that this is the upper. Okay, like that one. Yeah. So soften with water, and now you do this part first. Okay. So when you're doing the real lasting, you pull it a little bit. Sometimes we just use the weight of the shoe last to give you the pull. You don't really pull it too much. Okay, so this is enough. And then you use this hand to press it down. Okay, you really like massaging it. This hand is massaging it. Okay, so you pull it, massaging it, and then normally this is like one finger. It's about 2 centimeters away from the further edge. Okay, so you put it down, nail it. Okay, again, you don't put it all in. Then now the next one next to it, use this bit, take it, and then create a fold. Maybe I have to do it slowly. Again, this is very important. It's like you hold it, pull it until it's tightened, and you create a fold. Okay? So if your hand cannot handle all these things in one go, you can use an awl to create a small hole first. Then you can put the nails easier. Okay? Then left and right. Left, one right. Same it, pull it, and then create a fold. Okay, so then same it, pull it. So when you pull towards the center. So sometimes when you keep pulling the same direction, it will just create the, how to say? Wrinkles, yeah. So just pull towards the center here. Okay, make sure you know where the force is going to. Keep doing this. So the most difficult part is the front and the back. The rest is fine.